If Bishop Jakes was at a Diddy party, there could only be two reasons: money or
And then we said, but did you pay her fairly? And then he said, I paid her more than she's ever made. Remember when I said earlier, I've never seen so many cowards and black men in this business? I would have to put my brother Tyler Perry in that.
Hey, Bishop Jakes, how are you?
What's up, man?
Man, it's so good to see you.
It's better to see you. How you doing?
It's just real strange that he would be found at any kind of Diddy party or any kind of place with Diddy unless it's in a business atmosphere. So now what he's doing is he's making, he making the Christians look real bad right about now.
Heard being like, yeah, daddy, like when he started all that daddy this and daddy that, and then I heard some hollering and struggling like, yeah, I kept the phone.
Hollywood sells us dreams, red carpets, flashing lights, billion-dollar studios, and the promise that talent and hard work are enough to make it. But behind that glossy picture is another story, a story told by the people who were chewed up by the very system they helped build. And right now, those people are finally speaking louder than ever. This is not just about Monique, even though she set the spark when she exposed how powerful men in Hollywood wanted her silenced and underpaid. What is happening is bigger. Monique's story is one piece of a much larger puzzle. Katt Williams has been laying down clues for years, warning that the real power brokers are not who they pretend to be. He called out names like Tyler Perry and Bishop T.D. Jakes, not because he wanted attention, but because he saw how deep the manipulation runs. And he has never been afraid to stand in the fire with nothing but the truth as his weapon. But he is not standing alone. Gene Deal has been peeling back the curtain on the music industry, telling us exactly what went on behind the cameras and contracts. Jaguar Wright has risked everything to reveal what the public was never supposed to know about the carefully protected stars of the entertainment world.
Why would we need a 50-foot bed?
I mean, T.D. Jakes ain't small. I'm just saying. If it's a group thing, it's a group thing. You gotta think about, you got Rick Ross, you got Khaled, we talk about heavy hitters.
Each one of these voices has faced smear campaigns, blackballing, and threats, yet the stories they tell line up. The same names keep popping up, the same tactics keep being exposed, different lanes, same patterns. When you put their testimonies side by side, the picture becomes impossible to ignore. This is not about petty grudges or rumors. This is about control, about power, about a system that rewards silence and punishes truth. Tyler Perry and T.D. Jakes have built empires on polished images, but what happens when those empires are hit from every direction at once? How long can they keep smiling for the cameras when the receipts are piling higher every day? For years, people like T.D. Jakes and Tyler Perry have stood in the spotlight, presenting themselves as larger-than-life figures. They have been seen as success stories, as proof that hard work and faith can break barriers. They position themselves as beacons of hope for the community, men who built empires and inspired millions to believe that greatness was possible. But what happens when the very people who were supposed to lead by example are the ones hiding the biggest secrets? That is exactly why people like Jaguar Wright and Monique have shaken the table so hard.
And I'm gonna lay my hands on you, Bishop, and he said, and then it's on the that. He's doing all of this, right? And then there's a woman on the dais.
She is not whispering. She is not hiding. She is coming forward with receipts, with proof, and with a fearlessness that makes men like Perry and Jakes very uncomfortable. For so long, they could brush aside criticism and stand tall behind their polished images. Now, every time Monique speaks, that image begins to crack. T.D. Jakes has built himself into more than just a preacher. He is the face of modern Black spirituality, the pastor whose sermons go viral across social media, whose books top bestseller lists, whose productions make it to film and television, and whose services are broadcast nationally, even on platforms like Revolt. His brand extends far beyond the pulpit of the Potter's house. He has shaken hands with presidents, sat with kings, and stood shoulder to shoulder with celebrities. For decades, his name has carried weight both in the church and outside it. That is why his sudden and quiet resignation sent shockwaves. When someone with that level of power and influence steps away without warning, people are going to start connecting dots. And sure enough, people like Katt Williams, comedian Monique, and Jaguar Wright are doing exactly that. They're not buying the polished press lines about health or new ventures. According to them, this was not a graceful retirement at all. It was a forced exit. In her words, Bishop Jakes was pushed out before things could get messier. And the mess in question is the same man who has been plastered across every headline lately, Sean Diddy Combs. Let's rewind. Diddy's legal problems have been piling up. Lawsuits from women, former employees, and insiders have cracked open the door to years of whispered rumors. The biggest shock so far came when producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones filed a nearly 100-page federal lawsuit. In that filing, Jones accused Diddy of violent and abusive behavior. But what really set people buzzing was the fact that other names appeared. Bishop Jakes was not a defendant, but he was mentioned. According to the lawsuit, when Cassie Ventura hit Diddy with her explosive case, Diddy scrambled for image repair and allegedly leaned on Jakes. Jones claimed Diddy sought him out because Jakes had credibility, spiritual authority, and influence that could soften his image in the public eye. That single connection was enough to light the fire. Because the second your name shows up in a federal case, no matter how indirectly, you are standing in the splash zone. And then the internet did what it does best. Old clips began to surface.
I would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Have you gone through a time of swallowing where everything was overwhelming?
One of the loudest was footage of Bishop Jakes at Diddy's 53rd birthday party in Los Angeles. This was not a quick handshake and leave situation. The video showed him mingling, smiling, enjoying the night among a crowd of A-list stars dressed in luxury. Now people attend celebrity parties all the time, but Diddy's parties carry a reputation, one that is not exactly aligned with church values. For years, they have been whispered about for wild behavior and indulgence that has nothing to do with Sunday service. So when a bishop of Jakes' stature is seen there looking comfortable, people naturally begin asking hard questions. His team moved quickly to control the damage. Katt Williams, the executive vice president of TD Jakes Enterprises, insisted that the bishop was simply in Los Angeles for meetings and only stopped by briefly to wish Diddy a happy birthday. Just a respectful visit and a quick exit, nothing more. But not everyone is buying it. If your goal is to avoid controversy, why step foot at one of the most notorious celebrity events of the year in the first place? And then, almost as if on cue, Jakes makes his big announcement. No scandal, no public incident, just a clean and sudden step away from leadership. The timing, however, is impossible to ignore. Right before Diddy's trial moves forward, right after his name starts circulating in connection with the lawsuit, right as the public digs through old footage and social media posts. The story of coincidence is a hard sell. Former Bad Boy bodyguard Gene Deal has also never been one to hold his tongue, and lately he has had a lot to say about Bishop T.D. Jakes. Gene points out the glaring contradiction between Jakes' image as a spiritual leader and the company he allegedly keeps.
Why would you find a religious man, when you know that the saints supposed to separate themselves from the sinners, and why would a religious man like himself be at a party which ain't nothing but sin that's going on, bruh? Whether it's drinking, maybe fornicating, maybe, like I said, men on men, women on women. It's hard to put in perspective unless he's involving himself what is actually going on at the parties. It's hard, brother. Bruh, you can't, I really don't know why, as a spiritual advisor to him, that they buddy while he got a party with him like that and be at his parties. It's got to be, maybe it's something more that meets the eye.
In his words, the saints are supposed to be separated from the sinners, yet Jakes has been spotted at some of the same notorious parties tied to Diddy, events that Gene himself has described as drenched in drinking, indulgence, and all-out debauchery. For someone who claims to be a shepherd of souls, Gene argues, what business does Jakes have being in those environments unless he is participating in or enabling what goes on behind closed doors?
You know, I've talked to preachers and I've talked to reverends and priests, but they ain't never came to a party with me or nothing like that. So it's hard to figure that one out, bruh, without even saying, you know, what people might be thinking. But I heard that there's supposed to be some tapes or something that's coming out real soon. And I guess we'll all really know the truth if anything's on those tapes.
Gene has attended those infamous white parties in the Hamptons and has detailed exactly how they work. At first, secrecy ruled, with private rooms hiding what was really happening. But as the years went on, it became more blatant. Men openly with men, women with women, and people no longer caring about discretion. For Gene, the fact that a pastor of Jakes' stature would ever set foot in such a scene raises red flags. His blunt take is that if you are truly a man of God, you should not only be avoiding these spaces, but actively condemning them. And then there are Jakes' own household controversies. One of his sons was reportedly arrested in a Dallas park known for illicit activity, and both of his adopted sons have openly identified as part of the LGBTQ community. Gene makes it clear he has no issue with people choosing their lifestyle, but he questions how a pastor whose own household is so entangled in scandals can stand as a moral compass for millions. If you cannot keep your own house in order, Gene asks, how can you guide anyone else's?
You know, you got to look at a person's household, and if your household is not in order, you understand, how you gonna help somebody else get their house in order? You know, one of his sons got arrested, you know, some years ago in Dallas, you know, allegedly for being found in a park where a bunch of people that are homosexual hang out and indulge in activity. And I heard his two sons, which are not his biological sons, both of them are from that LGBT community. Now, how you gonna help me straighten out my house? And to me, your house ain't in order. Not saying that something is wrong with them being and choosing that lifestyle, but something is wrong with them choosing that lifestyle, being in a household with a reverend.
On top of that, Gene has hinted that tapes may soon surface, exposing even more about what really goes on behind the scenes between Jakes and the circles he is moving in. For Gene, the picture is simple. The bishop's public persona of holiness is being chipped away by private actions that look a lot more like compromise, hypocrisy, and cover-up. It's not just Gene Deal who has raised eyebrows at TD Jakes' double life. Katt Williams has also been one of the loudest voices calling out the bishop's hypocrisy. Long before these recent conversations, Katt made it clear he didn't buy into Jakes' carefully polished image of holiness. According to Katt, there's a pattern in the entertainment world where pastors and spiritual leaders align themselves with powerful men in the industry, not to save souls, but to protect influence, money, and access. And in Katt's eyes, TD Jakes fits that mold perfectly. He's hinted in interviews and stand-up sets that the bishop's close ties to certain moguls, his appearances at questionable events, and his willingness to look the other way on industry exploitation all point to a deeper involvement. Katt has stressed that real men of God would never blur those lines, especially not in spaces where exploitation and predatory behavior allegedly run rampant. Instead of rebuking it, Jakes is cozying up to it. And to Katt, that speaks volumes. What makes Katt's words sting is that they echo what Gene Deal has been saying. Both men, coming from very different angles, are essentially asking the same thing. How can a man who is supposed to stand as a beacon of truth and morality be so comfortable in environments dripping with sin and scandal? And why is it that someone like Katt Williams, a comedian who has been painted as crazy or paranoid by the media, ends up looking more honest than one of the most powerful preachers in America? Now the conversation has shifted. This is not simply about a pastor retiring. It is about what he might be running from. Monique is already promising more revelations. Diddy is drowning in legal battles. The bishop's exit lines up a little too neatly with all of it. And the streets are connecting the dots faster than churchgoers passing gossip in the pews. Something bigger is brewing, and according to Monique, the receipts will prove it. Here is where things start heating up. What used to be quiet whispers in the background is now becoming full conversations. And the gossip is turning into hard talk. Monique, who has made it clear she is not afraid of anybody in this industry, is pushing the claim that Bishop Jakes did not step away by choice. According to her, he saw a bomb about to explode and got off the stage before it could blow up in his face. And what kind of bomb are we talking about? The kind Diddy has allegedly kept tucked away for years. Monique says Diddy never just partied for the fun of it. He collected everything: screenshots, recordings, clips from those infamous nights that people whisper about, but rarely talk about openly. According to her, Diddy kept it all as leverage, not as memories. And now, with lawsuits piling up and his circle collapsing, there is fear that some of those files might see the light of day. If that is true, Bishop Jakes could be in those archives. That is not embarrassment level material. That is reputation-ending power. Think about it. Jakes has spent decades polishing his image as the father figure of modern Black spirituality. His sermons are clipped into viral moments. His books have sold in the millions. His conferences bring in crowds like rock concerts, and his brand stretches from church pews to Hollywood sets. The last thing a man with that kind of following and that kind of money wants is to be mentioned in the same sentence as lawsuits, freak parties, or federal investigations. And then Gene Deal entered the conversation. This is not some distant commentator. This was Diddy's bodyguard, the man who actually worked security at those parties. He is not speaking in theory. He is speaking as someone who stood at the door and saw who walked in, who stayed, and what they were doing. And Gene is saying flat out that Bishop Jakes was not just showing up to Diddy's gatherings. He was participating. That changes everything. It is one thing to pose for a quick handshake and leave. It is another to be involved in what those parties were really about.
And you've been to these parties, right?
Oh, yeah. I was there when he was doing the white parties in the Hamptons and the whole 9 yards. So I know what goes on at the parties. If, they probably got a little bit more freakier, as time went on, because they got to the point whereas that they didn't even care. It used to be secretly, where people used to go to, separate rooms and different rooms, and they wasn't doing that out in the public, but now they don't care. Men kissing men and all this other shit. That's just crazy.
So why do you think he was going to these parties?
I think that he's going to the Diddy parties, bruh. If he's going, we know he's going to the Diddy parties, and I know that it's, I know what usually happens at the Diddy party, or what we told us happened at the Diddy parties.
The timing of all this has people buzzing. Jakes quietly resigns. Within days, Diddy is hit with more legal fire. Old clips of the bishop at parties resurface online. Monique starts dropping hints, and then Jakes makes a statement that only made people more uneasy. Instead of a firm denial, he leaned into a message about grace and forgiveness. He told his audience that even if it were true, the blood of Christ would cover it. Then he added that he had nothing to repent for in this matter. That strange halfway response left people scratching their heads. Because if it never happened, why even bring up forgiveness at all? To many, it sounded like a man bracing for the worst, hoping the storm would pass without swallowing him whole. And let us not forget, T.D. Jakes is not just a pastor. He is a brand, a corporation, a movement. His name is stamped on books, film projects, merchandise, conferences, and global ministries. That name generates money, influence, and credibility. But one crack in that image, one undeniable piece of evidence, could make the whole empire tremble. Everyone in Jakes' circle knows what time it is. His team knows it. He knows it. That is why the exit had to be polished and controlled. No direct mention of Diddy, no messy back and forth with the press, just a smooth and quiet step away before the spotlight got too hot. The problem is the fire is no longer across the street. It is creeping closer every day. The internet has turned into a crime scene unit. People are pulling old interviews, screenshots of Instagram posts, guest lists from past events, and watching old clips frame by frame like investigators. And the closer we get to Diddy's day in court, the louder this storm becomes, because the case is not just about Diddy anymore. It is about everyone connected to him, anyone who showed up, anyone who stayed silent, anyone who might appear in those rumored files. One name falls, the others start to tumble, and that is why so many are side-eyeing Jakes' sudden retirement. It does not look like rest. It looks like a man slipping out the back door before the flood reaches his house. What started as a simple church announcement has turned into something else entirely. Pews are buzzing, timelines are spinning, and even longtime supporters are looking sideways. The timing is too perfect. Jake steps away right as Diddy's legal fire intensifies. That is not coincidence. That is a storyline straight out of a movie. Jake spent years carefully crafting a reputation as a spiritual leader, a father figure, a brand that stretches from sermons to books to film productions. That is why even the slightest link to Diddy's chaos is enough to shake his empire. And now with Gene Deal speaking out, the picture gets even darker. Gene is not some outsider. He was there, working security, standing at the doors, watching who came in and what they did once the cameras stopped rolling. And Gene is saying Jakes was not just present at Diddy's gatherings. He was involved. That flips the whole conversation. Because being in the room is one thing, participating is another.
My birthday is tomorrow. His wife's birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday! Happy birthday! My birthday is tomorrow. His wife's birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday!
Jakes' response only added fuel to the fire. When pressed, he did not come out with a firm denial. Instead, he gave a sermon that leaned on themes of grace and forgiveness. He said the blood of Christ covers all. He said he had nothing to repent for. To many, that sounded like a contradiction. If nothing happened, why talk about forgiveness? Why sound like a man preparing for judgment? That strange half-confession rattled people more than silence would have. And that is why the public is restless. The contradiction is too loud. Old clips of Jake smiling at Diddy's birthday party are now circulating alongside his sermons about sin and redemption. His fans are watching those two images side by side and wondering which one is real. Was he really the preacher of discipline and faith, or was that just branding layered over another lifestyle? Even outlets that reached out for answers got careful, scripted replies. His team insisted it was business. They said it was a brief visit, but for many it sounded like smoke and mirrors. Because why that party? Why that man? Why step foot into a room known for chaos when your entire ministry preaches against it? That is not a slip of judgment. That is a choice. And the internet is not buying ignorance from someone as calculated and media savvy as T.D. Jakes. And T.D. Jakes is not alone in all of this. Tyler Perry has long been celebrated as a powerhouse who built his own lane when Hollywood refused to open its doors. But behind the glossy headlines and billion-dollar studios, a different story has been bubbling under the surface. Former collaborators, writers, and actors have alluded to a pattern of mistreatment and control that rarely makes it into the spotlight. Perry has been accused of squeezing the people around him for everything they have, then discarding them the moment they ask for fair treatment. The controversy over his writers is a perfect example. When the team behind one of his biggest shows pushed for proper union contracts, instead of meeting them halfway, Perry reportedly showed them the door. These were creatives who had helped build his empire, producing hundreds of episodes that made him millions. But once money and credit were on the table, they were cut loose. Some of those writers later spoke out about how betrayed they felt, describing Perry's decision as a slap in the face. And it doesn't stop there. Cast members from his productions have quietly hinted that working under Perry can feel more like surviving than thriving. Stories circulate about grueling hours, little room for collaboration, and a culture where questioning the system is punished. On the outside, Perry frames himself as the ultimate champion of Black storytelling. But behind the scenes, the shine looks much darker. Monique's decision to call him out simply poured gasoline on a fire that was already smoldering. What once seemed like a few bitter complaints has now grown into a body of evidence that points to a consistent way of doing business. The same man praised for opening doors might also be responsible for closing them on anyone who dares to stand up to him.
What is that black to that black man? So no, I was not blackballed. I was whiteballed. By some black who had no balls. Thank you, Mr. Lee Daniels. Thank you, Mr. Tyler Perry. Thank you, Miss Oprah Winfrey. No, baby, I wasn't blackballed. I had no balls. And see, I know they like to say, Monique, you talk to mother. It would kill me not to say it. It would kill me not to say you are not paying me equally. You are not treating me fairly. So y'all can suck if I had one.
Let's talk about Tyler Perry's long history of union battles, because the drama did not end with his writers. Back in 2015, the tension hit another boiling point when major actor unions SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity outright banned their members from working on Perry's play Medea on the Run. Why? Because Perry's production company refused to sign union contracts. That's not a small slap on the wrist. That's two of the biggest unions in the business saying enough is enough. To them, Perry wasn't just cutting corners. He was cutting people out of their protections and benefits and doing it in the name of profit. And if you think that was just a paperwork issue, the stories from people on his sets tell a much bigger tale. Actor and voice coach Brandon Jay, who worked on Perry's Meet the Browns, went viral on TikTok when he shared what it was really like behind the curtain. According to Jay, filming even one episode with Perry felt like a marathon compared to working anywhere else. He described the chaos of last-minute rewrites where Perry would toss out entire scripts and hand actors new lines on the spot. Forget the weeks of prep and rehearsal that most productions allow. Perry demanded pages and pages of fresh material learned in a matter of hours. And if you couldn't keep up, the rumor was Perry wouldn't hesitate to fire you right then and there.
Mr. Perry comes in, everything changes. So we literally run the entire episode for him, and he hates it. Does that mean I have to learn a whole new script? Yes, that's what it means. Mr. Perry on the spot starts rewriting the entire script, and he's feeding me the lines to say, and the director is kind of standing on the side like, you better do it, because if not, they will fire you. Here is where the shoe hit the fan. So in the middle of Mr. Perry changing up the scenes, he says, you know, I want Jeffrey to be gay, and he has a crush on his bully. That's not what I auditioned for. What?
But here's where it gets even wilder. Jay auditioned for a role written as a bullied high school student, nothing unusual. But when Perry decided the script wasn't working, he threw a curveball. Out of nowhere, Jay's character was rewritten as gay and secretly crushing on the bully who tormented him. Jay admitted he wasn't prepared for that twist and immediately called his agent, who told him flat out he didn't have to take the role if it made him uncomfortable. Perry wasn't offering a conversation or collaboration. He was dictating exactly how he wanted it done, regardless of what the actor signed up for. Jay ended up going through with the role, but his story cracked open something deeper. He wasn't just talking about long hours or tough working conditions. He was pointing to a culture of control, where Perry could flip the script at any moment, both literally and figuratively. And behind the scenes, other whispers started surfacing about young black men on Perry's payroll being expected to show up whenever he called, no matter the circumstances. To some, it sounded less like a professional workplace and more like a one-man kingdom where nobody dared question the ruler. This isn't the image Perry pushes in interviews or at red carpet premieres. To the world, he's the mogul who overcame the odds, the man who gave jobs to thousands, the symbol of independence. But these stories paint a very different picture, one of union standoffs, actor exploitation, and blurred lines of power that make people uneasy. And the more former insiders speak up, the harder it gets to ignore that Perry's empire might be built on shaky, uncomfortable ground. The recent buzz around Tyler Perry has gotten louder, especially after actor Christian Keys dropped a tearful Instagram video. In it, he opened up about being targeted by a powerful man in the industry who bragged about having multiple young black men on the payroll. Christian didn't name names, but considering he's been working with Perry for nearly 2 decades, from Diary of a Mad Black Woman to All the Queen's Men, the internet wasted no time speculating. He even claimed he secretly gathered evidence and turned it over to the police. Whether Perry is involved or not remains unclear, but the video fueled ongoing questions about Perry's treatment of actors and his power behind the scenes. And let's be real, this isn't the first time Perry has faced criticism. He's been accused of abruptly firing writers, casting stereotypical roles, and pushing harmful portrayals of black women. Cultural critic Jamila Lemieux once wrote an open letter blasting Perry's choice to dress up as Medea, arguing that mocking black matriarchs for laughs strips dignity from one of the most respected figures in black culture. Spike Lee piled on too, calling Perry's brand of comedy coonery and buffoonery and warning that it reinforced tired, one-dimensional tropes. Then there's the colorism issue. Fans and critics have noticed a pattern. Darker-skinned men often play villains or abusive partners, while lighter-skinned or white characters are framed as heroes or saviors. Chris Rock even cracked a joke that if Tupac were alive and cast in a Perry movie, he'd probably end up as the abusive, dark-skinned boyfriend instead of the hero. It was a joke, but one rooted in a real frustration about representation. This feeds into a much bigger Hollywood problem. From the days of Hattie McDaniel being forced to sit segregated at the 1940 Oscars to the more recent hashtag #OscarsSoWhite backlash, the industry has a long history of sidelining black talent or boxing them into stereotypes. Perry, despite his massive influence and success, is now being accused of doing the same thing within his own empire, cycling through roles where black women suffer and black men fall into toxic caricatures. Movies like A Fall from Grace and Acrimony sparked heated debates online, with some fans questioning why Perry rarely shows black women thriving, while others defended him, saying he's simply reflecting real struggles. Still, many argue that Perry's tight grip on his productions and lack of collaboration with other black writers and directors only worsens the problem, keeping his content locked in the same patterns. Even Dave Chappelle once raised eyebrows about how often black male actors are pushed into wearing dresses for laughs, pointing to a Hollywood trend of humiliating roles for quick checks. Perry, of course, has built an empire with Medea, a character that both launched his career and continues to fuel debates about stereotypes, respectability, and exploitation in Black entertainment. So what do you think? Comment down below and let us know. If you like this video, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be the first to see my next video. I post updates like this every week where I uncover the secrets of your favorite celebrities.